Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Matt, are we all set? Justin, are we all set on Zoom?
Should be.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, good evening and welcome to the San Luis Obispo County Farm Bureau's Supervisor Candidate Forum. I'm Paul Clark, Executive Director. We are a grassroots member-driven agricultural advocacy organization. We're 600 members strong. We neither endorse nor oppose candidates running for office. Our goal tonight is to inform our members, the agricultural community, and the community at large of these candidates' views and perspectives relating to the vibrant and critical agricultural industry in our county. Gentlemen, we are grateful for your participation tonight, especially considering how demanding your campaign schedules are this close to the election. Also, thank you to the audience here tonight and those watching the forum online. We ask that there be no cheering or sign waving until the end of the forum. If time permits, we will take written questions from the audience. Justin Blank, our Deputy Executive Director, Sarah Kramer, Matt Merrill, both members of the board, will bring you an index card to fill out with a written question. Please indicate on the card whether the question is specific to District 2, 4, or to all candidates. If you wish to submit a question, raise your hand and we'll bring you a clipboard, pen, and an index card. Candidates will be limited to 1-minute responses for the audience questions. Farm Bureau will screen the questions and we reserve the right to reject questions we believe are not in spirit and tone of this forum. 4 candidates have drawn cards to determine who will go first during the opening statements. High card will go first. The candidate with the low card will go first during closing statements. All questions will be asked of the same candidate and they will speak in a rotating order. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer a question. Anna Grandi, another board member of Farm Bureau, is our timekeeper. She will hold up a yellow card when the candidate has 30 seconds remaining and a red card when time is up. There is drinking water on the table. Please help yourself. We have restrooms, the best way to get to them is out the back door through the lobby door, and there'll be the door on the left. You'll see the hallway. Jesslyn or Matt can give you more directions if need be. And so with that, let's begin. So Adam Burton drew a high card and Jim D'Antona drew low card. So Adam will lead off. Each candidate will be given a 3-minute time period to introduce themselves and give a general statement. And then again, throughout the questioning, we will rotate the order of candidates who goes first and so on. So, gentlemen, starting with you, Mr. Burdine, please make your opening statement.
Sure. So, first of all, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. And for a reason sort of special to my life and my family. We have had a long connection in the ag business, in the ag industry, starting with my grandfather who came here from Mexico. And his first job coming into the United States was working in the fields. My dad and his brothers also grew up working in the fields as teenagers. And then I personally have a connection to it because I was a corporate pilot for an ag company for a number of years. While I was doing that, I was in my late 20s. While I was doing that, I took an interest in agriculture myself, and a partner, Greg Phillips, some of you may know him, we decided to lease 80 acres of farmland. We grew sugar peas, cherry tomatoes, and cukes. And that first year that we grew the sugar peas, we had a great market. And I thought, man, this is a great business. And then the Guatemalan sugar peas kicked in, and the market tanked. And so we did this for, 4 years. On the 4th year, there was a hurricane in Central America. And so the market was good. However, we got disease in the ground. And so the production fell off. So we pivoted to strawberries. We had a south-facing slope, a sandy soil. So we did that. And I don't know if you guys remember Isidro Munoz. So Isidro was our partner in that. And it was about, at that time, this was like in 1998, it was about 20 grand an acre to farm strawberries. We certainly couldn't afford that. So, and we didn't know how to farm strawberries. So we did that for about 4 or 5 years. We sold the lease and moved on. And it turned out to be reasonably successful. I will say that today we're in the restaurant business, and that is a tough business. But a tougher business than the restaurant business is the ag business. And so I have enormous respect for it. I characterize it as it has all the sophistication of the stock market, except that the stocks are perishable, subject to weather, and you can have the very best planning in the world, and it's a tough deal. Now, in running for office, I've talked to many folks in the ag community. You know, I think I understand the pain points, the protection of property rights, the protection of the Williamson Act, protection of water rights. And to the extent that government can get out of the way of what you're trying to do, it should and can. And with that, that's my opening. And I said I have 30 seconds, so I'll stop. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, and Mr. Woody.
Thank you so much. I'm Michael Woody, candidate for the Board of Supervisors along the central coast of California, called District 2, ranging from Los Osos all the way up to the Monterey County line, and representing a bunch of what I've always called a bunch of bohemian artistic communities that are some of the most amazing places in the whole world. Professional, a little bit about myself. I have been a professional civil engineer for the last over 25 years. I'm the owner of a company called Structural Engineering and Construction, where we do engineering and construction business all throughout the Western United States. Education-wise, I received my Bachelor of Science from Fresno State in civil engineering. Was lucky enough to go on to receive my Master's in Public Administration from Harvard University. My community involvement over the years has included recently the Moore-Based Citizens Finance Advisory Committee as their vice chair. Yeah, I got the glasses, hold on. Where I also served with the Morro Bay Market Lease Agreements, the Morro Bay Social Services Budget Review, also presently serve on the Cruise of Plains Native American Advisory Council, and have recently graduated from the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Citizens Academy, as well as the Morro Bay Police Academy. Tribally, I'm a member of the Salina Tribe, Monterey and San Luis Obispo County. My grandparents and his brothers and sisters were the ones that were part of the Indian tribal group that was up at an area called Floral Creek, located between Morro Bay and the Tascadero. Head up that way and get to the little halfway house up there. Go about 3 miles north. That's where they're at, and that's what the tribal settlement is up there. And formally, I'm also a former elected official out of the city of Fresno. I served on the Fresno City Council a few years ago. My gosh, back in the 90s. So it's been quite a few years in fact. During that time, I was the vice chair of the Fresno County Transportation Authority, served on the Retirement Systems Redevelopment Agency. And my family heritage has had a long, wonderful tradition south of this region for hundreds of years, through the Indians, through Floral Creek, and through the Sonales, the Byline family, Brown family, et cetera, et cetera. So it's nice to bring such a wonderful heritage to all this. Unlike Adam, I don't have a farming background. But let me tell you this. What I do come from is a family of people that have worked in the fishing industry. The Pierce, the Brebs, I come from the Pierce family. They were the ones, along with the Brebs family, and many other people who did so much to this community to develop the fishing industry. My family has grown up in the architectural, engineering, construction business. We know what it's like to own private businesses. My entire family historically has been private business. I understand what you're going through. I get it. And you will not find a more fierce supporter of the ag industry if I were to be elected to the County Board of Supervisors for you. So with that, thank you so much. And I truly look forward to answering your questions tonight.
Supervisor Paulman.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Jimmy Paulding, your 4th District County Supervisor. Certainly, it is a pleasure to be here with you all today. Thank you to the Farm Bureau for hosting this candidate forum. I think it is really important that voters get to have an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates and ask some questions, and hopefully we have good answers as well. So a little bit about my background. I'm from this community, went to Cal Poly where I studied city regional planning and met my wife Kendra. After that, I worked in the industry for about 12 years, doing project management, primarily on public works types projects. Everything from airport redevelopment projects to wastewater treatment plant upgrades, to criminal justice facilities. And took that experience with me to law school, finished law school, ultimately opened a small law practice where I practiced estate planning, and ran for office. And I was elected back in 2018 to the Arroyo Grande City Council, where I served for 4 years, and ultimately to the Board of Supervisors in 2022, and have been serving for the last 3.5 years. And it really has been the honor and privilege of my life. We are doing so much great work on the Board of Supervisors. You may recall reading a lot of negative headlines about how the board would conduct business, and we changed that model. We have ushered in a new era of stability where the board engages in respectful dialogue and debate and builds consensus. We've had 5-0 votes on a number of things like our board priorities, where we've prioritized public safety, fiscal responsibility, housing and economic development, storm recovery and infrastructure, water resiliency, and organizational effectiveness. And I've been a leader on those initiatives, putting the time and energy and commitment in to move things forward. One initiative, for example, has been hiring outside consultants to do operational assessments of our various departments to identify efficiencies and make our government work for you. That's also led to cost savings. We actually eliminated 155 positions from the county budget, $35 million that you as taxpayers won't have to pay. That's allowed us to focus on priorities like public safety. One of my accomplishments was delivering the Napomo Sheriff Substation, which was identified as a need back in 1994. Got that funded at $12 million for the community of Napomo, and that'll be under construction next year. Also was able to prioritize the planning process for the community of Napomo as it's growing. Without the infrastructure services and facilities to really support that growth. And part of that planning process has led to a financing plan to actually fund traffic congestion, safe routes to school, bike and pedestrian improvements, and parks and recreation improvements. I've also been able to secure a 3-0 staffing model for our Cal Fire County Fire Department, where we now have, for the first time ever in Napomo, 3 firefighters per fire engine. I was also able to secure funding up almost to the tune of $1 million for the 5 Cities Fire Authority to fund continued services in Oceano. These are some of the accomplishments that I've been able to achieve for District 4 and hope to continue for another 4 years serving our community. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dan Cohen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, thank you, Paul and SLO County Farm Bureau for hosting tonight's forum. And thank you all for being here and engaging in this conversation. I'm Jim Danzlota. I'm running for County Supervisor in the 2nd District. Because like you, I love this community and the values that make San Luis Obispo County such a special place. For the past 7 years, I've had the honor of leading the San Luis Obispo Chamber of Commerce. A meaningful part of that work was our partnership with the Farm Bureau. Because both organizations understand that agriculture is not just an industry here, it's a cornerstone of our economy and identity. That partnership spans more than 100 years, and I truly value working with Paul Clark and Brent Burchett before him to advance our shared goals. Agriculture in SLO County has now surpassed $1 billion in value for the 4th consecutive year. That's not just a statistic, it underscores how essential agriculture is to our region's long-term success. The 2nd District reflects that importance with a wide range of agricultural activity from cattle and calf operations to row crops and to orchards. And because so much of that activity takes place in those unincorporated areas, the decisions made by the County Board of Supervisors have a direct and lasting impact on the future of agriculture. In my previous experience, I've heard clearly from farmers and ranchers that California continues to make it increasingly difficult to operate here. That makes it even more important for the county to be a partner, not a barrier. As supervisor, I'm going to fight to protect the Williamson Act, which is critical to keeping our agricultural operations viable. And I would fight any attempts by anyone to undermine it. We've also seen what's possible when we work together to cut unnecessary red tape. The Farm Bureau's collaboration with the county led to over-the-counter permits for certain storage structures that saving time, reducing costs, and letting you focus on your work. That's exactly the kind of practical progress we need more of. And I'm committed to finding additional opportunities to streamlining the red tape. I spent half my career inside local government, guiding and building policy. That experience gives me knowledge to speak to the bureaucracy with specificity on how we can fix these things. It's one of the one thing to be able to say that you want something to change as an elected official. It's quite another to be able to point out the specific place where the problem is and how we can fix it. Those previous experiences bring my learning curve to be supervisor down to nearly zero. That experience matters. It means I understand not just what needs to change, but how to make it happen, how to navigate systems, identify bottlenecks, and deliver real results. As an example, it's practical with our water issues in Edna Valley. We've been working to get the recycled water from the city of San Luis out to the Edna Valley. I look forward to the conversation tonight and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to actual specific questions. Gentlemen, these you will have 2 minutes to respond. Anna, our timekeeper, will warn you when you have 30 seconds left, and then we'll hold up the red card meaning you're out of time. Based on production value, multiple economic drivers such as employment, sales, tourism, agriculture contributes billions of dollars to the San Luis Obispo County economy. How will you, each of you, prioritize the protection of agricultural resources and ongoing operations? And what specific policies would you pursue to support the industry? Mr. Woody, we will begin with you.
Let me solve everything in 2 minutes for you. Sure. One of the many things that we need to do in this community, and I think we do a pretty good job of it to a large degree, is making sure that we prioritize family farms in our communities and family farming in the industry as a whole. Making sure, Jim brought this up earlier, and he's right, protecting the Williams Act. The Williams Act at this point is crucial to understanding the type of things that we need to do. I also know that dealing with state regulations that we have been, that have hampered much of the farming industry. Recently state regulations with AB 1066 requiring the 840 schedule for farming, the minimum wage requirements, you have issues like that are coming up that we need to make sure as a county board that we are your voice to the state of California to make them understand that you cannot just put these type of restrictions on our farms and our family farming. The other one would be, of course, the water issues that we're facing here, specifically in Paso Robles. We know that we're dealing with the many types of issues down in District 2, but also some Cambridge issue over. And so understanding those water issues and making sure that we can create those solutions for our family farmers out there that meet your requirements. One of the issues federally is making sure that we continue to support the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, federal government. And as long as we can start moving forward and be here for the county and support the county issues that, and making sure that you have that voice at the table is going to be crucial to making sure that we can adopt those policies that will help you out. But first and foremost, we need to make sure that you guys are at the table all the time and your voices are heard. There you go.
Thank you. Supervisor Pauling.
I would love to opine on the question. Yes, thank you. Ag in SLO County is a major economic driver to the tune of over $1 billion annually. We love our strawberries, our wine grapes, our vegetables, our nursery products, our livestock, even the Brussels sprouts. Myself and Sean have a little fun with that one at the board level every time we get the annual crop report. And I'm a big Brussels sprouts fan. Oh, there you are, John. Hey, good to see you. Not a big fan of Brussels sprouts. I will eat them. I love them. Love all vegetables. But I will say, when we talk about what the number one issue is, to me, it's water. And, that really implicates what kind of policy the Board of Supervisors has on water. And, the Paso Basin came up. We've been doing a bunch of things there. One of them is a voluntary land fallowing program that we were able to establish working with the industry, working with our local farmers, working with the Farm Bureau, to essentially ensure that our growers could reduce irrigation without losing benefits under the Williamson Act. And that's really, really critical. And that's an example of the kind of partnership that you should expect, that you deserve, with the Board of Supervisors. I have had quarterly meetings with Paul with the Farm Bureau, as well as Claire with the Growers and Shippers Association. So I stay educated and informed on the issues facing you. I think that's critical, and I will continue to do that as a supervisor. When we talk about drought, water scarcity affects crop yields, costs, and farm viability. And this does require state and local action. And we've got to be more efficient with our water use, our conservation programs, and as I was saying, the sustainable groundwater plans that we do have. And so there's a lot more opportunity for partnership there as it relates to Los Osos or the Edna Valley Basin, or some of the issues we're dealing with in South County. But to me, the best thing that we can do as a Board of Supervisors is to partner with the ag industry, and that voluntary fallow program would be an example of one that I've helped bring to the community.
Great, thank you. Mr. D'Antona.
Okay. So as I mentioned in my opening there, certainly Williamson Act is of utmost importance to ensure that you can keep the land in your family and using it for agricultural purposes. But I actually look at something even smaller. I had a great conversation with someone who talked about, along the roadways, making sure that we are dealing with the weeds and spraying the weeds along the side so that those weeds don't end up in your fields, right? And if we do simple things like that, we can actually make your job easier. And that's what the things, again, back to common sense, small things that we can do where we actually have a large impact. I want to talk about those other things where you're literally spending time at county offices talking about getting permits filed and waiting for reports before you can move on redoing your land or moving your property around. There's a lot of things that we do that create those hurdles and barriers in order for you to do the work you're doing. And it's obviously some of the most important, whether it's the strawberries, whether it's row crops, broccoli being shipped. We've got to do our part on our side to lower those thresholds, and working with our state elected officials to simply let them know what we're hearing from you. We should be your voice to them. The relationships that I have built in those spaces give me an opportunity, in my experiences, to be able to go there and say, hey, we got to fix this. Whether that's someone great, I think we've seen with Congressman Jimmy Panett, who is really, there's someone who really gets and wants to have that connection. I would like to follow that ideal and make sure that what we do for you fits what you need, not what we think you need. And again, the relationships that we have with Farm Bureau, cattlemen's, are the ones that are going to help us decide where we are going to turn those knobs. And I look forward to doing that with you.
Mr. Verdeen.
Yes, sir. So I think I'll start with water. So I think we need to, it's fundamental for us to just live in this county, let alone farm in it, that you really have to protect our water resiliency. So starting in the North County, north of the grade, I think the FAL program is a good program. I think that right now there's about 100 monitoring wells. It sounds like it should increase to about 150. Having more wells out there is going to give us more precise information, which will give us more precise water policy in that area. In the South County, the 4th district, I think there's a couple of opportunities. One is if the D-cell plant is built out to its capacity at Diablo Canyon, that's an additional 5,000 acre feet of water. I think we need to think about pursuing that. In addition to that, the city of Arroyo Grande right now is working with Golden State Water to close a gap, roughly about 50 to 100 feet gap that could connect Zone 3 water with Golden State Water, which then in turn will connect to the Napoga water that is connected to Santa Maria water. And so that presents an opportunity for mutual aid and mutual support with water. So that's the water piece. The other part is workforce housing. So we just need to do a better job on housing. And I say this in everywhere I go. So if you talk to people self-help housing, just their organization has something like 7,700 people on their waiting list. It just tells you that we need to do a better job with workforce housing. We need to make it easier to build things. You know, if you're building a house, one house, and you need to hire a consultant to help you get through the process, something is wrong. If you're a business and I had to hire a consultant to work through my restaurant, something's wrong with our business. So water and housing are fundamental issues for me.
Thank you. This next question is really a kind of a follow-up to the first question, and that is based on regional government agencies we deal with, state agencies we deal with, federal agencies we deal with in agriculture. What should the county's role be in trying to keep agriculture a viable and healthy industry and way of life here in the county? And on this question, we'll begin with Supervisor Paul.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would say balance, right? So we need to balance the interest in this particular case, private property rights, water rights with regulation, with taxes, with all the burdens that come with trying to regulate the industry. That's one key way that we can, as county supervisors, advocate for you, is to make sure that those policies are balanced in Sacramento, and that our county's legislative platform reflects that balance. I'll give you a tangible example of the kind of advocacy that we need to see in Washington, D.C. Recently, I had the pleasure of visiting DC and meeting with a number of federal agencies to talk about issues that matter to us here in San Luis Obispo County. One example was working with the NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Program, on some novel conservation programs that they have that could help incentivize, not regulate our local farmers in their ability to control erosion that ends up, sediment that ends up in our creeks and whatnot. So our county right now is actively exploring that, having had that conversation with the NRCS recently. Another example is what we were able to achieve with the Arroyo Grande Creek Oceanos levee situation, where the 2023 storms knocked out that levee. We actually were able to use a program, $1.5 billion of federal money, to acquire a private property that continued to flood over and over again, work with that property owner, acquire that, and turn it into a flood easement. So these are the types of partnerships that we need to achieve at the federal level. Seeing 30 seconds left, I will say Lopez Lake, if that's on your radar, has been a tremendous litigation associated with Lopez Lake, and the allegation that we're somehow negatively impacting the steelhead trout, which is an endangered species, has been an impact to our farmers and our water supply. And I've been fighting to make sure that we are not allowing those regulations that are overly burdensome to negatively impact ag and water. And I'll talk about that here a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dan Tona.
Well, as you're talking about the issue being what's our role, to me, I love getting into the weeds and understanding deep pieces of all of the things that go into it. But I'm an athlete and I used to play a little football. I see it as our job is to be your lead blocker, to be the one to get out in front of you and actually, through our relationships, help you get through the issue. And so really for my piece and my belief would be to be in such a place that where Paul calls, Gene calls, somebody calls and says, hey, we've got an issue that we need to take care of. And that we have worked so closely together that I can pick up the phone and call the governor's person, I can call the state's person, I can call the federal person and see what the holdup is and get through that issue, whatever it is, that barrier. Really for what we should be here for, you're the experts of what you do. And by knowing what you need us to do, we should be the ones who can go into the slog of bureaucracy and really try and fix the issues. So for me, yes, there's a ton of things we could talk about with water, with transportation, with lowering the barriers. But to me, the best thing I feel like I can do for the ag industry is actually be the person that's your best cheerleader and your blocker. And that'll change depending on what's happening in the region.
Thank you. And Mr. Wood.
Because I'm not a template. Let me capitalize on what Jim Gentona was just talking about. He's right. We need to be your advocate. We truly are the ones that we should be looking at. We answer to get for too many years. That's been overlooked for too long. When it comes to what the county can do specifically, I mean, you know, just more than just the Williamson Act. It's strengthening the general plan ag element. It's supporting the right to farm ordinances. It's supporting balancing programs. And as much as recently we've been talking about this half-cent sales tax for transportation, you know, we know that we're dealing with a lot of infrastructure problems dealing with farm. When will we start getting, we'll start talking about potentially a small sales tax to help you guys out with what needs to be done with water infrastructure out there? Maybe that should be on the table as well. You know, beyond the boots that I have on here tonight, I haven't farmed before. But I will tell you, as I said before, I watched, and my family's watched for well over 100 years out here, how the state of California and the federal government has completely almost annihilated the fishing industries. What they have done to the engineering industries, what they've done to the construction industry under the California Building Code and what's called Title 24. And I've watched this. I've watched it damage my family. I've watched it damage construction. And I know poignantly through my great uncle Les Pierce, who owned the famous turkey ranch out there in Creston years ago, that these regulations over the years are killing all of us. It's more than just ag, it's all of us. So I get it. And I've served on city councils. I know what it's like to build those relationships with state and federal people and actually make it happen for you with those relationships. So those are the types of directions that I want to bring to you. It's the knowledge of having done this before. It's knowing that, no, I haven't farmed, but I can tell you I've seen it happen to our businesses and our families as well in other industries. And I'll be there to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next question, just a reminder.
Yeah.
Mr. Burton.
I'm sorry.
Oh, see,
I'm just right. Good job. I go out. Okay, I apologize. No. What was the question?
Okay, I remember the question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I look at this role as being your advocate, as being on your side. And that's in all aspects of it. You know, I feel like I have certain expertise and really in two key areas. I think we can run a restaurant decently. And I have as many takeoffs as landings, flying in airplanes, so reasonably successful there. But I am not, what I understand about the ag business with my experience is that it's hard. And there's a lot of risk involved with it. And it was a long time ago. That was 20 years ago. Regulations have changed. I think the process has changed. So really, this role is about listening to you and then responding to that and being your advocate. Plain and simple.
Thank you, man. I apologize. My own note keeping is hard to read.
Oh, no.
For the next question, just a reminder, if you want to submit a written question, hold up your hand and either Jesselyn or Sarah Kramer will bring a clipboard and index card. Thank you. Next.
Paul, just a
Oh, I'm sorry.
quick question. So if we ask a question, is that to all of the supervisors or is it directed to, candidates, or how is that handled?
Please designate we prefer that if you're asking one candidate, at least both candidates from that district should be able to answer, but designate if this is for District 2, District 4, or for all 4 candidates.
Thank you.
Okay. Third question, again, 2 minutes each. The current Trump administration's immigration enforcement policies have directly affected farming operations in our county.
Well-
What role should the county government play in assisting our agricultural workers and the migrant community at large? And Mr. D'Antona, we'll start with you.
Oh, thank you. Sounds great, but I mean, at least Congress hasn't been able to solve this issue, so why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't I be able to take this one? Actually, it is one of the most pressing questions that is facing our county at the
Yeah.
moment, right? Whether it's on the workforce side, whether it's just in the residents,
17.
our neighbors, watching what's happening.
I have
It would
two.
be great
What?
if our.
Okay, I have
federal
two in the
government
front and one in the
come up
back.
with a Policy, an immigration policy that would work, that we could follow.
Yeah,
but
the back one has
for
to be done too.
The interesting
It's
part. is
never been
working
replaced.
Through the.
Mute your
the
microphone,
visa
please. Mute your
programs
microphone.
That we have, and really trying to assist and smooth the path for that to be an easier piece with our federal elected officials. So that, I know there are agriculture operations that are doing great work, bringing workers here as part of that, which has been a fabulous plan. Now, I don't think that is still happening smoothly. What can we do to try and help with that? I think what we need to be doing is creating those spaces to ensure that when we meet agriculture workforce, labor workforce, that we are creating a pathway for people to be in as part of that. Both through the continued labor group, but also external from our region, bringing them in and making sure they have a place and are secure, and that our businesses have that available workforce available.
Thank you. Mr. Dean, I didn't forget you this time.
Oh, good.
You're next.
Right. So I think it's a very tough situation. And so as I shared with you guys, my grandfather came from Mexico. And he came at a time when it was actually, I'm just trying to get rid of that. When there was an opportunity to come here legally to do that. And I've shared before, I said, when my grandmother was here, I helped her. There was a plate with the presidents on there, and I helped her memorize those presidents so she could become a U.S. citizen. Right now, it's just very tough for anyone to do that today, and I think it's really unfortunate. What does the county government do? I'm not totally sure. I met with the sheriff. I asked him very specific questions about the process and his relationship and how he conducts himself with ICE. I was very pointed on those questions, and he was very candid, and I was satisfied with those answers. But for the county government to say, to ban ICE and some of the other conversations, like say you're going to ban the IRS or you're going to ban the EPA, that just isn't practical. I can't say that I don't like a lot of what I see. There are some credible nonprofits that help folks, but beyond that, I'm not quite sure what the county government does against the federal government.
Mr. Woody.
Thank you. A couple of the issues that I've come up recently with the Trump administration is obviously with the recent tariffs that have gone on since he's been in office, have created havoc all across the United States and in fact even around the world economically. Economic uncertainty is at the hallmark of the death knell to all businesses. We know, my family knows it, everybody in this room understands that. We know with that, due to some of these recent tariffs, I know that there was, and I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the farming groups around here, if I remember right, had a hard time selling, I believe it was bell peppers up to Canada. They ran into that problem as well. I know the government tried to come along with something called farming federal bridge payments, $12 billion with $11 billion going towards row farming. But what's interesting about that is that once again, we run into something that only government is capable of doing. It's only government that can come along and say, can come in there into the room, break your legs, catch you for a new set of crutches, and then hold a press conference and say, look, we helped you walk. And that's what grants like this feel like for that $12 billion. So in that respect, we need to make sure that the federal government provides that even playing field that we can count on. We also know that as I talked about before, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, it's going through the federal government, would help out a lot with this. And also, we got to be aware that the federal custody USDA that has created problems as well for the farmers in this region is something that we need to make sure that we're your advocate for all of this. It's more than just the policies that we can do here, but it's making sure, because your industry is so interrelated with state, federal, and local, that we've got to make sure that all of us are on the same page and making sure that your state, federal representatives listen to your voices. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I will do for you as your representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Paul.
Thank you. Well, on the subject of what we, the County Board of Supervisors, can do on this particular issue, a couple of things. One, we formed an immigration ad hoc committee to look at issues surrounding immigration in general. One of those is obviously the impact to our agriculture. We know, we've seen studies that our California agriculture is being negatively impacted due to the increased enforcement coming from the federal government through ICE, et cetera. And I think that that's problematic. I think that it's important that we have leaders that step up in this moment and speak up and advocate for reasonable immigration policies. And we need comprehensive immigration reform. Unfortunately, we have a broken Congress right now that isn't able to get that done. But that leadership really entails working with our federal representatives, taking a stand, pushing them as far as we can to make sure that they are working to introduce that legislation and get that passed. We need a way to address the people who've been in this country for a long time, those hardworking, non-criminal people. We also need a way that is fair for people to come to this country. And we need a lot of reform. Outside of that, what our committee has focused on is understanding the issues of our immigrant community. And we've identified a set of recommendations for how we can continue to strengthen and bolster that community, especially many families that have been impacted by ICE raids and stuff that have essentially left kids at home. And many of those kids are American citizens. So in addition to those kind of things, looking at the types of supports, I think that it's really important that we continue to work with our federal representatives.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't forget anybody. Perfect. This question is a follow-up, and a brief answer is just fine. Do any of you believe local law enforcement is violating state law by assisting federal law enforcement in detaining undocumented immigrants, or the converse? Is our local law enforcement violating federal law, what the requirements are in complying with federal law, and not cooperating as they have to with the federal authorities? And Mr. Verdeen, we'll start to you.
Yeah, so I met with Sheriff Ian Parkinson. We met for about an hour. I asked him very specific questions and he provided very detailed answers. And I'm very confident that he's conducting his office appropriately. So the answer is, I don't see that local law enforcement, but what I can tell, is violating any laws or doing anything improper.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I would capitalize on what Adam just said. I've talked to the sheriff about this as well, and the feedback we've gotten through legal counsel and everything else is that the sheriff's department is doing everything correctly. If they're not, I can assure you that I probably, like everybody else in this room, probably on the table, I would be the first one to table to say, hey, listen, we have to make sure we apply the law correctly. If we're not doing that, then we have to take care of that.
Thank you. Supervisor Baldwin.
Thank you. I do not think that the Sheriff Ian Parkinson is in any way violating the SB 54, which is the California state law that restricts who can be released into ICE's custody when they're in the custody of the sheriff's office. And I know that the community is very concerned with what they see on TV, what we've seen in our community with some of the arrests. But the reality is I think the community needs to focus its ire and attention on the federal government, as I was mentioning earlier, and the federal government's policies, not our local sheriff. You know, I grew up in a law enforcement family. My dad worked for the San Luis Obispo Police Department and went on a number of ride-alongs and saw the the work that he did, really engaging in the practice of community policing, where you partner with the community, where you build those relationships in the neighborhoods. You know the pastor, you know the teachers, you know the local business owners. And I think that our sheriff wants to, he does engage in community policing, and our sheriff's deputies do that good work. And I think that there's always room for improvement in how we can strengthen relations with, in this particular case, the immigrant community, to make sure that we're building and rebuilding that trust. So they're not afraid of our local law enforcement, because our local law enforcement are there to keep us safe. And I think that's what they've been doing, keeping us safe.
Thank you. Mr. D'Antoni.
No, I don't think the sheriff has violated any of the laws that he's SB 54 that he's supposed to be upholding. I think the bigger issue is all the gray area that fits in this tough space for him to operate, right? Whether ICE waits outside his doors for these things. Again, I don't believe the sheriff is doing anything to supersede or go over the law, SB 54. But I think there's things we could be transparent about, just so folks feel comfortable with the work that the sheriff's office is doing, and that understanding when those issues come up, when they do have to transfer someone because of a warrant. That's what's happening in this case or that case. And when people are being released and ICE is taking them, how is that interaction happening? I think the key for understanding this whole thing, again, goes back to the federal government, the issues of immigration. But I think the key is that it would be great if we had more transparency. And I think the Truth Act forum that happened at the county was incredibly helpful to show some of those things. And they're doing more things. We're going to be reporting more often to understand what pieces are legally required, what pieces are happening, whether we like them or not. So that's how I believe the sheriff is acting.
Thank you. Fifth question, again, 2 minutes each for each candidate. There may be a half-cent sales tax initiative on the November ballot dedicated to road maintenance and transportation infrastructure in San Luis Obispo County. Our industry depends heavily on well-maintained and safe roads. First, do you support the sales tax initiative? Second, if it passes, as a sitting member of SLO, what would your infrastructure priorities be? And Mr. Woody, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, I'll take care of it. I do support the half-cent sales tax. Couple things on this though. One, I supported this topic. I want to make sure that with the half-cent sales tax, that this is not going to be a sales tax that's going to strictly just put a freeway grid system throughout San Luis County. I want to make sure that this half-cent sales tax is distributed so our local communities have them, can repair our roads, repair our infrastructure, and can also be a half-cent sales tax that is used for other forms of transportation, including bike paths, trails, and those other types of projects. That would be my one caveat with it. My understanding from regional legislation is that that's in fact what it does do. None of us want to turn this place into Los Angeles. And I want to make sure that this half-cent sales tax does not do that. And from what I've seen from that, that is true on that. And you got a second part to that question. I apologize. What was it?
As elected to the Board of Supervisors and as a city member of SLO, what would your infrastructure priorities be?
Okay, yeah, the infrastructure priorities would come back to, first of all, let's start getting a grip on the roads that are truly falling apart and the bridges that are falling apart in this community, in all of our communities. Excuse me. I sat as the vice chair of the Fresno County Transportation Authority and the half-cent sales tax called C up there. I'm painfully familiar with how these projects and how the sales tax works, very well adept to it. And I know the types of projects, not that just this half-cent sales tax will pay for, But I'm also very aware of how these types of community support leads to state and federal funds coming in for more projects on top of it. So in essence, it's kind of like a matching fund thing. Priorities would be taking care of our existing infrastructure, putting the roads that are necessary, and including other types of transportation projects out there as well. Not just a road system, but bike paths and trails for our community as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Paulman.
Well, thank you. I hadn't written up my notes here. I'm responsible. I think it's a great question. I think that ever since 2016, we've seen the need for this. You may recall that there was a measure on the ballot in 2016. It failed by 480 votes to get the 66.67% threshold in SLO County. We've been hemorrhaging dollars to our neighboring counties that have a local measure. They're referred to as a self-help county because we can't. Because we do not have that status, we're ineligible for a number of state funds, and we've lost out on a documented over $300 million worth of funds that we could have put into our roads and infrastructure here. So my position has been we need to give this choice to the voters because this really does involve the voters' quality of life. And if we want to improve, actually, if we want to maintain our roads and infrastructure, we need this. If we want to improve it, we need this. So one of the things that comes up in the conversations that I have is the concern around the wise and fiscally responsible use of our taxpayer dollars. So this measure does have a Citizens Oversight Commission where we'll have citizens that will review annual reports and see how that money is being spent. I think that's a critical taxpayer safeguard. I also, I guess in responding to the second part of the question, want to highlight a couple of projects that I've been really advocating for our district, for community. Especially for that will help the agricultural community. The first project is the intersection of Halcyon and Highway 1. I'm sure you've all dealt with that traffic congestion at peak hours. And so I've been able to secure funding to move that project forward. It'll be under construction next year. Another would be the Duquette Road situation where because of really restrictive environmental regulations, we weren't able to get the permanent fix in a reasonable amount of time. So I was able to get a temporary bridge fully funded that is starting construction any day now, which will really help our agricultural partners who operate out there in Wasna. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. D'Antona.
We forgot you.
Are you going down last or?
You're supposed to, by my notes, you're supposed to go now.
Okay, got it. I just double check. You don't want you to get skipped over this right now. Yes, in fact, 100% I am behind this tax measure. This is one of the most important things we can have for our community. The fact that we didn't pass that, as Supervisor Baldwin talked about 10 years ago, means we've lost out on $700 million that could have gone to transportation infrastructure in our region. We need this now. It's absolutely, this has been set up so that everybody gets a piece of it. 55% of this money is set up to go back to individual communities, the cities, to actually get the work done. And then additionally, being spread out through all the rest of the communities, unincorporated communities, or through the supervisor districts to make sure everybody gets something. The key here is, if I had a priority coming here this afternoon, 227 would have been. And then, but if you, as I go North County, right, you come over the grade or going back and forth with the grade, the rush hour, of course, Shell Beach curve. These are things where all of these other traffic is happening because there's too much, it's too constrained in all those places. So for me, the priorities are these big projects so that we can move some of these things, free up some of the space. And then finally, specifically in our community, Los Osos, right, is a space that has been missing infrastructure development investment for a very long time. The kids from Monarch Grove Elementary have to walk into LOVR to get to the library. We have to fix that. So that'd be great with those small pots of money that we can go in and do those safe routes to school projects, which would be a part of it. We have to pass this. If we don't do this, we're really going to suffer.
Mr. Verdeen.
So a couple of thoughts on that. One is, they call it a self-help county. And so the way the state of California works is they incentivize counties to impose a tax on their citizens in order to get this money. And if you look at our county, 58 counties, we're one of the least affordable. So I don't think it's the fairest approach. However, those are the cards we're dealt. And so under that scheme that we're working under, we certainly need the improvements of roads. However, I've been driving down, I came down Tank Farm, I go down 227, and I see gas almost $7 a gallon. And so the question isn't whether I support it. The question is, if you put it as a ballot measure, will the citizens support it? And if polling indicates that they won't, or at least they won't right now, then it seems to me that it's irresponsible to spend the money to put it on the ballot if it's unlikely to pass. So as much as we need the money, we can't be putting things on the ballot that isn't going to pass because the timing is right, but I admit we certainly need the money.
Follow-up question to this topic. If the sales tax initiative fails to pass, where would transportation fall on your priorities as a county supervisor? And what, if any, other sections of the county budget would you consider cutting in order to fund more road maintenance and infrastructure projects? And Supervisor Pauling, we begin with you.
Thank you. I appreciate the question, and it gives me a real opportunity to speak to the facts in this particular case, because there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there on this topic. So I mentioned what the board's priorities are earlier today in my intro. Fiscal responsibility, public safety, housing and economic development, storm recovery and infrastructure, water resiliency and organizational effectiveness. Our storm recovery and infrastructure was not a priority prior to the 2023 storms that caused over $70 million worth of damage to our roads and infrastructure. We added staff to our public works department so they could go through the process of entering into those contracts, working with construction contractors to repair all of that damage. And they did an epic job. That necessarily involved making storm recovery and infrastructure a top priority. So when people say that the Board of Supervisors has not prioritized road maintenance, that's not true. If you look actually at District 4, you'll see that our pavement condition index has gone up over my 3.5 years in office. And what we've been focused on are improving the infrastructure that was damaged. Another, I guess, point I would like to make is that when we look at our overall policies, some will say, well, the board prioritized homelessness and mental health because those were on the tier 1 list over roads, which wasn't on the list because it was infrastructure and storm recovery, which obviously includes roads. And the reality is that homelessness has been prioritized. We've seen a 42% reduction in unsheltered homelessness as a result of the board prioritizing it and moving the needle on it. And we've also seen that with mental health, prioritizing it led to a strategic plan that led to a gaps analysis that led to us securing a $22 million grant to build a facility that will address those gaps for people like youth in crisis, which we know is a gap. And so when you ask what a county supervisor's priority is, it really does matter. And roads have always been important. I'll continue to maintain, the funding levels that we always have, which, by the way, is about $6 million per year, which is a maintenance of effort agreement with the state of California that we've continued to maintain the whole time that I've been on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. D'Antona.
Yeah, if that doesn't pass, I can't, to me, that would also say that maybe voters don't believe it should be a priority. I think I wouldn't look to be cutting anything in order to keep our roads. I do, as the supervisor said, there is a funding level for this. And the problem is throwing even more money at it doesn't get us that much more. An extra million here, an extra million here may not get us to all the places we need. What I think I would be more functional as a priority is looking at where exactly we are spending those dollars to actually get projects done, right? What is the most important things that we can get done? If we are putting all the money towards a big project and trying to save up for it, is it more beneficial for us to repay areas that are worse, where our road score is much lower, where we can have a bigger bang for our buck rather than trying to pull it all together? I truly believe here, I look at the things that are coming forward. HR1, the big, beautiful bill, is going to have a massive impact on the county's budget. So to whether we'll even have the resources to do the things we need to do will be an interesting conversation when we get to 27. But I do believe that we will have to maintain what we're doing. I don't know that I would actually move it up because there are so many things when we look at our parks, our open space for kids, things that we have to deal with, mental health, unhoused. I would definitely look at how we're spending money, not necessarily spending more money.
Thank you. Mr. Verdeen.
Yeah, I would definitely move if it doesn't pass. And I think it was a mistake to remove roads from a tier 1 priority to a tier 2 priority. And I think the budget that I read indicates that I think about $6.2 million of general fund money goes towards road maintenance, and it's been flat for the last 4 years or so. And because the cost of construction has gone up, what that means is actually a net decrease every year. Now, if you're going to put a ballot measure or consider to put a ballot measure on and ask the citizens, taxpayers to prioritize roads, then I think it's fair that county government does so too and lead with example. Out of $1 billion budget, you have $6.2 million of general funds being spent on roads. Pismo Beach is over $4 million. So I just look at it like, hey, those are the facts. I mean, you guys can come to your own conclusion. Is that adequate or not? I don't think it is.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Thank you. I'd like to see roads moved up to a tier 1 priority for the county budget. Here's why. I go back to, this is what I do professionally as an engineer. What if we kick the can down the path on something like this, the worse it's going to get? And it's not just our roads. It is our infrastructure. It is our sewer lines. It is all the projects that we can't see that are, good point, that we can't see underneath our grounds. They are deteriorating and they are falling apart very quickly. Now, one of the things that I'd also like to see that we need to do is budget it. And because I've heard from elected officials in my district and from community members as well, is could we finally have a breakdown of what each one of our communities are paying in property taxes and what we're getting in return for the property taxes that we're paying. It has been a frustrating thing that many of us have been asking for a long time. A simple breakdown from the county would be a good first step forward on that. If we don't get this, I think Jim brought up a good point on this. I mean, we're going to continue to make these yearly cuts over what's going on here. Now, understand that I think there's misunderstanding that a lot of people don't believe in what county government is doing because they're trying to say that, well, it's because you guys are misspending all these funds and that's why you're upside down year after year. But what we have found through analysis through these budgets is that I'll make this through the unfunded mandates that are coming down from the state and federal government. If our county government continues to keep everything just as is right now, it's not the fault of the county government. Believe it or not, a large part of this is from the unfunded mandates that continue to come down on all this, not just our budget, but going back to the farmers, the ag people, the construction industry, all of us are having to do this right now. I'm very hopeful that this will pass. I'd like to see infrastructure more so prioritized with the county. I'd like to see a little more transparency for our local communities so we can have more community discussion. Because my concern is that if it doesn't pass, it's not because people aren't willing to spend money on this, it's because they don't trust what we're doing.
Thank you. Seventh question, again, 2 minutes each. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act will have a significant impact on irrigated agriculture far into the future. What policies would you prioritize? What specific policies would you prioritize to protect and maintain groundwater in the basin, balancing the needs of agriculture, rural residents, and urban areas? Mr. D'Antonio, will begin with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the water. This is, I saved kind of one of my pieces because I'm assuming water will be coming up here soon. And I think it's one of the most important parts. And it's not just for ag, but let's use the ag discussion. This is happening for all our communities. When we look at water use throughout our county, I know just in District 2, we have somewhere near 12 different water purveyors doing water. And then 5 different treatment plants and whatever. We have no focus on how to collaborate to use our water. I started that conversation. The city of San Luis Obispo has a water treatment plant. As they were finished with their water, they put it in the creek goes out to the ocean. Why is that not being utilized as part of an issue to put back into the basin of the San Luis groundwater basin right over here? And that would add substantive amounts of water to our basin, which would then allow us to have sustainable yields to continue farming down here in the area. We're not doing that at any level. I'm in our district, Cambria, very tight on water. San Simeon has extra water. They're right next to each other. And yet nobody's doing any calculation or merging of that conversation. We need to think of water like we thought of it, like we think of everything else. How do we help distribute all of this so that we can continue doing the great work? We can't lose what's in the Paso Basin and the Edna Basin and the growing that's happening in those places, just because this place has more water and that place does.
Mr. Burdine.
Well, first you have to protect the basins. And so how do you go about doing that? One is, as I said earlier, in north of the grade, you have to measure how much water is in the basin so that you can have a more precise policy. In addition to that, there are other ideas out there that I think make some good sense, such as settling ponds, making it easier for property owners to have settling ponds in the North County so water can percolate rather than run off to the ocean. Same with the Salinas River. Is there the possibility of slowing down the water going down the river so that it percolates further as well? And then San Luis, I'm sorry, in the 4th district in my area, as I said, talked about the possibility of taking advantage of the desal plant and its potential excess capacity to support Zone 3. And then, of course, the work that's already ongoing with the city of Arroyo and Golden State Water with creating that connectivity. So these are all, to me, they're very achievable things. And then, of course, there's the pie in the sky route. Can we expand Santa Margarita Lake for additional capacity as well? But to me, that's the thought process and the approach going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Woody.
Thank you. It comes back to something really central. It's listening to local professionals. Let me elaborate on this. In District 2, we have extreme water issues going on from Los Osos, Cambria, San Simeon, on and on and on. And these types of water problems exist everywhere. The problem that we're facing down in Los Osos clearly is that we don't listen to our water purveyors, and we need to start listening to water purveyors. But we're not doing that right now. So it needs to come back to saying, let's listen to the local professionals, let's listen to the farming industry and deal with the issues they're dealing with. When it comes to the JPA that's being discussed, I believe it's that there is smartly so an exemption for what would be the minor users, de minimis users, in the livestock users. I think it would be an exempt from any type of fees or payment for water under this JPA. But the bottom line is that we got to create a system that protects this water system and that protects your rights as family farming and make sure that it is fair and equitable. That's where it comes back to, whether it's listening to the people of Los Osos and what they're dealing with down there and the water traders there, or listening to you as the farmers and the ag professionals. At the end of the day, I can tell you a hell of a lot about how to build a trust. I can tell you a hell of a lot about how to put the foundations in a house. But don't let the boots fool you or fool you. I've never spent a day in my life farming a damn thing in this county. That's where I need to listen to you. You want to know how to put your home or put a structure together, come see me for a little bit. But when I need to know what's going on in farms and what you guys need, I need you at the table and I need you show us the way. That's what we should.
Thank you. Supervisor Paul.
Thank you. I do want to talk about groundwater sustainability management. I also want to talk about new water supplies. The way I look at water in general is just like a financial portfolio. It needs to be a diversified portfolio. So we need to protect our groundwater. I mentioned the example of the voluntary fallowing program that we've been working on in North County, which is a great way to work with industry as opposed to regulating. We're using incentives, and I'll continue to partnership in that way. When we look at the use of technology, I think it's important to underscore the good work that our groundwater sustainability division has done recently. We actually use satellite-based evaporative transpiration mapping to look at our water usage. That is an alternative to monitoring. And while we need to expand the network of monitoring wells, we also need to continue to utilize that mapping tool. We've actually applied that to South County too. And we see that we have really responsible farming practices and farmers that are doing a really good job at using the right amount of water. On the new water supply question, we need to talk about desalination. In fact, I've been leading the charge to do a large regional study and now a project with the 7 cities here on the Central Coast and the community services districts, as well as the county of Santa Barbara, to analyze sites on the Central Coast for feasibility and viability to locate a desalination facility, which would provide new water for everyone here on the Central Coast in SLO County. And one of those sites being evaluated is the Phillips 66 Floater Refinery, which is in my district on the Pomo Mesa. It has an existing outfall and other facilities that can be repurposed for desal. I want to touch on briefly the Lopez Lake issue. We have seen the concern brought by environmental groups over impacts to steelhead trout. What I was able to do recently was go to Washington, D.C. and meet with Congressman Carball, Congressman Panetta, Senator Adam Schiff, and a number of regulatory agencies to try to get our habitat conservation plan approved, which will settle the litigation that is potentially going to cost taxpayers and ratepayers money in the city of Rio Grande and Grover Beach.
Thank you. Okay, 8th question, again, 2 minutes each. The Williamson Act has been one of the most effective tools in California to preserve farms and ranches from urban, suburban development. However, it comes at a cost, especially since the state stopped paying subvention funds back to the counties a number of years ago. Because of this, the county does lose revenue to maintain the Williamson Act in their county. How do you assess the effectiveness of the Williamson Act today? Do you believe that program is worth the cost of the county? And under what circumstances would you consider changing the rules of procedure or loosening the rules of procedure so that, say, agriculture could put in solar, additional solar beyond what supports their use, or expanding the use of the ability of other businesses or types of activities on ag land? Mr. Verdeen, will begin with you.
Well, I think the basic premise of the Williamson Act is to support agriculture. And so I support the Williamson Act for that purpose. To say that you're supporting the Williamson Act for some other activity, whether that be putting housing in or putting solar in or anything like that, I need to know more about that. That doesn't sound, that sounds a little bit different than my understanding of the purpose of the Williamson Act.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I think the Williamson Act is absolutely worth the cost. I mean, like anything, you have to spend money to make money. And we have to understand who we are and what we are as a community, not just with agriculture, but our small coastal communities, what we have here in the tourism industry and whatnot. So I think to try to put it in terms of saying, well, we're going to spend this money, we're losing money, but you know what? But look at the benefits to having this ag industry here. So I think there's no question in my mind that the Williamson Act is an important, viable part of this. And in fact, it should be expended. I do believe it is worth the cost. In terms of using it for other items, it goes back to saying, okay, can we do something like that? I'm not aware that maybe you can. I know it's been pretty strict when I have worked with homeowners and landowners to help them with projects on their property. I know getting property out of the Williamson Act is a very tricky thing. It's very narrowly written that way. So it'd be a matter of saying, can you work something like this? Can you do it with our local jurisdictions and still keep within the confines of the law? If you can, I would be fine with it.
Thank you. Supervisor Polo.
The Williamson Act was critical for our local farmers, and I absolutely support it. We'll continue to support it. Modifying it to essentially change the original intent is an interesting question. One example of what the Board of Supervisors recently did do was, again, with this voluntary fallowing program, is we modified it. We did that so folks could continue to fallow their land and engage in the voluntary fallowing program to reduce, our water pumping in the Paso Basin area. So that would be an example of a change I did support and would support. But as it relates to solar and other industrial uses, I think it would require a close look at, again, the intent of the Williamson Act and the intent of, I know in this case, there is some either state legislation that has been proposed or state legislators that are having this conversation actively. And I know that the Board of Supervisors will be weighing in on that. And I think it really does require a close look at the costs, benefits, pros and cons. But generally, I want to see that we protect ag and the vital purpose of ag in our community.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Binghamton.
Yeah, it's absolutely not a cost to county. I understand what you mean. You could get more property tax out of it, but when I look at this and would never look to get rid of it, what we see is we are benefiting in so many other ways as an industry, right? The industries that are putting out our farmers markets, our wonderful products being sold and transferred throughout the state of California, United States, is because of the ag we have, and that is creating other revenue enhancements. So 100%, I don't believe it is a cost. But as I also understand the cost of doing business for ag is another piece. And so if there were other ideas for us to think about how we were generating revenue for those landowners, I still think that benefits us. I'd be really open to hearing what that discussion is. Obviously, I think one of the things we really benefit from having all of this great land serving ag is our tourism. People come here, right? You can go to Santa Barbara and see a beach, but you don't get, until you get way back, you don't see this beautiful open space or see citrus groves or see grapevines or see strawberries, right? You don't see all those things. It's a special place, and I hope we would do everything we can to keep that. And so one of my ideas would be, if we're going to look at what the other potential options are, hopefully it would be something where we're still keeping that feel and that culture that has made that ag has made here in SLO County.
Thank you. Well, that concludes Farm Bureau's prepared questions, and we do have time for a number of questions from the audience, as screened by our board member, Sarah Kramer. So, and this is for all of you. In this instance, you each have a minute to respond. This is the lightning round. This is for District 2 and District 4. What is your position on offshore wind and battery support? I know you have an established order here, so I will call on Mr. Verdeen first.
Sure. So with offshore wind, the question isn't whether you support offshore wind or not. The question is, do you support the changes in, or the potential changes in infrastructure or shoreline to support that? And so, tourism is a huge part of our economy. And so the question is, if you're going to build an industrial port in Avila or an industrial port in Morro Bay, is that consistent with that piece of it? So I think that if you're going to say that you're in favor of offshore wind, you really have to look at that other piece and say, are we sacrificing or hurting the tourism industry? With respect to battery storage, my wife writes yes, and we're certainly not opposed to batteries. The concept of storing electricity in a box and for later use is a good idea, but there's a time and place for everything. And putting battery storage in Napone near houses within 1,000 feet of the 101 in the middle of ag fields is absolutely the wrong place for it. So those are my views.
Thank you. Mr. D'Antona.
I will, in one, I would say benefits and safety. What are the benefits that our community is going to get from it? And what is the safety measures being put in for it? The offshore wind is not coming. Trump administration has killed that. I think your point about industrializing the ports, Avila or Morro Bay are off the table. I don't think that's happening. So I think the real important question is when we look at the one that could happen, which is battery storage, what are the safety measures being put in place to ensure that we don't have a Moss Landing here? That we don't, well, the people of Morro Bay have said, we are not going to have it here in our power plant. And that's great. That makes sense. Where are we putting these so that their benefits and safety are most applicable to our community?
Thank you. Supervisor Baldwin.
Thank you. So on offshore wind, the county's position, since I've been on the board, has been one of acknowledging that it's a federal matter, that we don't have jurisdiction over offshore wind. And two, making sure that the benefits, any benefits that would accrue from offshore wind energy, for example, making sure that we have operations and maintenance facilities and the jobs that would be created associated with those happen here on the Central Coast. However, the bulk of those facilities and infrastructure are going to occur down in Long Beach. And that is, there was a report that was published to talk about redeveloping and industrializing Avila Beach. That is not happening. As it relates to battery storage, I think it's something that we need. I think the land use element is important where we site these facilities. I've advocated to change our rules. So when we provide community noticing, we provide a notice to any property owner within 1,000 feet instead of the 300 feet. And those are the kind of values that I have.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Real quick, offshore wind, no, I absolutely don't support it. Here's why. It is one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive form of carbon neutral energy. It was absurd to do this to our coastal communities and especially to our ocean. We don't have the infrastructure here in California. For the last 10 years, I've been going to these meetings throughout our Central Coast, in Morro Bay, and in these communities. These people have continuously changed the line and told us we've got just a few hundred, just 100 of these going out there, 600 feet tall. Today, we've got 3 lease agreements out there in the ocean for wind turbines that are now 11 feet tall, that are twice as tall as Morro Rock. I do not support this project. There's no reason to support this project. Battery storage, simple. Get it out of our communities. Look, I understand electrical as much as anybody, but here's the reality of it. After what we saw in Moss Landing and all the years being promised that everything is safe, it's not safe. We're going to do it here at SLO County, put it in the more rural areas that are at least 3 miles away from any of our farms, our beaches, our oceans. And when it comes to notifying people, 3 mile radius.
Thank you. Thank you. This is again for all candidates. What is your view of the county staff's execution of the permit process, in particular, building permits? And Mr. D'Antona, we will start with you.
Hey, okay, I like this one. Yeah, this goes into my experience. I came out of land use, inside government. There is a lot of slogging through wet cement in order to get things done. There are a lot of hoops that we make people jump through that we do not need to. We have not empowered our staff to say yes, or created a culture where we want to say yes. The answer seems to be standard no, or well, I'm going to pass this along to someone else. We absolutely need to do more in order to make it easier for people to do the simple things. I just met with 2 homeowners and they couldn't even get their stuff done. We absolutely can make this easier, and we have to make it easier without taking away the standards that we uphold for safety.
Thank you. Supervisor Baldwin.
Thank you. This is a really important issue. It's been a top priority for me. Our planning and building department is getting better. So I would take some issue with that, Mr. D'Antona. We hired a consultant to do an assessment of the planning department. They looked at it from top to bottom, and they made a series of recommendations that came with an implementation plan that assigned roles and responsibilities to our staff to implement these recommendations, to make our planning and building department over-the-counter services more efficient, to make our subdivision track map process more efficient. And we are implementing those recommendations. Part of that is an ongoing customer service satisfaction process that we've implemented as well. And I look forward to seeing the result of how our efforts have been working.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
You don't need another consultant to tell you how to fix this. You need somebody who actually works in this industry. And I can tell you exactly what's wrong with all of this. You have a system in place that has grown out of control for the last 30 or 40 years, where it used to be that you could get a permit for a home with 3 or 4 sheets of paper, 24 by 36. Today, it's hundreds and hundreds of sheets. Now, a lot of this goes back to the California Building Codes. And a lot of this goes back into a culture here in our county, in our building departments, in which they're incentivized to slow things down. And when people like me get a back checklist that's 12 pages long, knowing that 9 of those pages have already on the plans. You need somebody in there who understands this. I do. It's what I do, what my family does for a living. We can tell you point blank how this goes through one by one by one. Now, how do you fix this? We have to change the culture of what we're doing here in these building departments. You don't need a consultant. You need people in there who know exactly how this works. Thank you.
And lastly, Mr. Verdeen.
Sure. So 3 things. Well, a couple of things. One is on that KPMG study, I would require the CEO to report on that in every meeting. For him to pick the top 4 items, and so we understand what that progress is, to make sure that that study doesn't go to waste. The second piece is, you know, there's a canary in the coal mine here, and that is when you have to hire a consultant to do very basic things, to remodel a home, to build a home, to put a drive-through in, or driveway in, there's telling you that there's something fundamentally wrong. As I say, in any of your businesses, imagine having to hire a consultant to work with you. I mean, it's so common now in San Luis County that we think it's normal, but it's wrong when it needs to be fixed.
Okay, thank you so much. And that, unfortunately, is all the time we have for items. Yes. So,
Just be more just out there now.
food truck. Justin, how many people do we have watching this online?
There's 38 people.
So this has been a great attendance for our audience, our in-person audience and online as well. Now, each candidate is allowed to make a closing statement. You are given 2 minutes each, and this time reverse order. The lowest card goes first, and so on. So, Mr. D'Antona, we'll begin with you.
Well, perfect. Once again, I want to thank Farm Bureau for doing all the work to make this forum possible, putting it online. That's very difficult, but appreciate the effort for that. I also want to thank everyone here online come to watch discussion to help you inform your understanding these supervisor races. And thank you for the work you do every day to sustain one of the most important parts of our county's economy and identity. If there's one thing I hope you take away from my remarks this evening is this: agriculture in San Luis Obispo County is worth fighting for, and we need leadership at the county level that has the understanding and acts on it. That starts with protecting the tools that make agriculture viable, like the Williamson Act. It's not just a policy, it's a commitment to preserving working lands and ensuring that future generations can continue to farm and ranch here. As your supervisor, I'll stand firmly against any efforts to weaken or eliminate the Williamson Act. It also means continuing to cut through this unnecessary bureaucracy. You deserve a county government that respects your time, understands your challenges, and works with you, not against you. I've done that work before, and I know I can be even more effective in the role as county supervisor. My experience both inside government and leading in the private sector means I won't be learning on the job. I'll be ready on day one to navigate the system, solve problems, and deliver results that matter to you in our county. And whether it's advancing practical solutions like the recycled water for Edna Valley, or finding new ways to support the long-term sustainability of agriculture across the county, I'm committed to working closely with your Farm Bureau leadership to do that. This campaign is all about us working together to protect what makes this place special, to build a future that's strong, resilient, rooted in our shared values for you and for those generations who want to continue to do this work. I'd be honored to have your support, your partnership, and your vote. I'm Jim Danstoner, and I'm running for SLO County's 2nd District. And with my final seconds, I should have said ag tech is what we need on the labor issue. When we were talking about. They'll take that. Yeah.
Supervisor Baldwin.
Well, everyone, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming tonight and hearing us speak. And thank you to the Farm Bureau for hosting us. We really appreciate it. As your county supervisor for the last 3.5 years, this has been the honor and privilege of my life. I love this work. I love our community. It is about service. I grew up in a family that was oriented towards public service. My dad, as mentioned earlier, was a law enforcement officer. My mom was a teacher. My mom's here, by the way. My mom and my sister is also a teacher. The reality is that we need public servants who put the public interest first. And that is my feeling, that I've been fighting for the public interest, that I've been fighting for the residents of District 4, that we've moved the needle on public safety, securing $12 million for a sheriff's substation to get that project done, making sure that our firefighters are fully staffed at 3.0 staffing, making sure that we recovered from the 2023 storms and we repaired our storm, our infrastructure. All of those things, in addition to securing a reliable source of water for our future through the regional desalination initiative that we're working on, all those things matter to the people who live in District 4. And I really hope that I'll get elected and continue to serve for another 4 years so I can keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Woodies.
What an absolute honor it is to be here tonight. You're welcome. An absolute honor it is to be here tonight. I'm to tell you one of the most interesting things about doing this election this cycle. We live in a society today where things have become very polarized. So on a different aspect besides agriculture, I'd like to say it is kind of a pleasure to be sitting here with these 3 other people up here. Knowing that I've also made 3 other friends during this entire election. And so you don't have to deal with any of us throwing tomatoes at each other. None of you know this, but I think Jim and I have some inside jokes that get shared back and forth during the election. We do have our differences and we have our opinion and our points of view on many things. And I get that. And that's important that we have these discussions. But it's also important that we do it in a very civilized and respectful way. You do get that out of the 4 of us here tonight. Supporting the ag industry from the expansion of the Williamson Act, strengthening the general plan ag element, support the right farm ordinance, the balloting programs, water infrastructure, and the need for that. That is something that, of course, I will be fighting hard for you. But even more than just hitting the ground running and doing something like this, with me, you get a supervisor that understands the issue, especially when it comes to the issue of your permit process you're dealing with in here. I don't need to hit the ground running. I already know what the problem is. I know how to fix it. And that's the kind of solutions that I want to bring to you. And I'm committed to bringing to all of you here in this room here tonight and throughout this entire community. I stand to support I stand to support the making sure that we protect our small local coastal communities from Los Osos all the way to Monterey County. It's a beautiful stretch of land. These communities are worth preserving, not just for all of us, but for my family's history that has also been here, and to make sure that this area is preserved for generations to come. That is something that is crucially important for me, to make sure that in another 50 and 100 years, it's still here and people are still can live here and enjoy. So thank you so much for having me here tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Verdeen, who drew the ace of hearts, I guess, and
That's a good card.
and sleeves are rolled up, so he didn't like,
That's it. So first of all, thank you to the Farm Bureau and to your members and for all the good work that you do in our county. So why I'm running because I think that we can do better. Both my wife and I, through her business and my sister and I through our business, the restaurant, we have made a concerted effort to be partners in the community, to support causes that we believe in. And we do it with our own dollars and our own time. So I have no experience spending your money doing it, but I do have experience spending our money and our time doing this. We stood up the first permanent warming shelter in South County this year, largely at our expense. We set up a food program. As a team, we set up a food program with the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition that's saving, north of $200,000 a year in food costs through a partnership with Lucia Mar in a kitchen that they weren't using. and the volunteers that we were. I led the effort on setting up the first aviation CTE program for Lucille Mar School District. And I'm very proud of those things, but I'm really proud of that we just did it, right? I didn't get paid to do it. I did it because it was the right thing to do, and that's why I'm running. I'm proud to say that I have the support of some friends, Dee Lacy, former Cattlewoman of the Year. I'm proud to say that I have the endorsement of the Cattlemen's Association, of Carlos Castaneda, of John Hayashi, who, by the way, I used to buy my drip tape from him when I had that little ranch in on the Mesa, and that's really it. You know, come June 2nd, I hope you vote for me. I ask for your vote, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Gentlemen, thank you. This has been a long event, and thank you for your candid answers and the respect you showed each other. Okay.
Great.
All right.